November 4, 2024 regular meeting of the Union County Board of Commissioners to order. At this time, I would like to recognize Commissioner Melissa Merrill to provide the invocation.
Hi. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with humble hearts, and everyone's very eager for tomorrow, and we just ask you, Lord, to be with us in everything we say and do, and that we trust that you hold everything in your hands, God, that you are sovereign, and that everything works together for your good and for your glory. And as we enter a season of thanksgiving, may we give praise to you, Lord, for your goodness and your many, many blessings over Union County, North Carolina, and our country. May everything we say and do tonight and always be to honor you. Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is informal comments from the community. Each speaker must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they are residents of Union County, and indicating the municipality within which they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks. A tone may sound at the conclusion of your remarks. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers may not discuss matters which are the subject of public hearings, and they must be courteous in their language and presentation. Restatements or repetitive comments by the same speaker, whether at the same or separate meetings, may be ruled out of order and terminated by the chair. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. Speakers may leave written comments and/or supporting documents, if any, with the clerk to the board. Our first speaker is Balaji Srinivasan.
May I speak here? Okay. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think I'm paying a lot of visits. First of all, thank you for that opportunity. I'm here to support and ask your continued support for the 74X bus. Just wanted to say thank you and appreciate if you can continue to do the same. And we are seeing a lot of increases in the ridership, especially month over month since the bus-only lane has opened. A lot of people are moving in, a lot of ridership, so I would appreciate that. And every day my commute has been less stressful, better for my health, better for my wallet, right? And I could not help to notice that when you started the Pledge of before the Pledge of Allegiance, whatever you say, good for the country, good for the planet as well. So in that regard, I want to just point out what we are doing for people like me who are stewards of, or would like to be the stewards of the environment, is very helpful that you provide this service. It goes without saying, the devastation which you saw in the Western Carolina is not because of something. It's because of the CO2 and all the warming of the planet which is happening, right? So every time you have a person taken off the road who takes the public transport, you are a small way helping the planet and helping the country. So just wanted to reiterate that fact. Right? Once again, thank you for your support and continue to see the bus being in operation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alagiraja Ramasamy. Our next speaker is Jennifer Stiles Clark.
Hello. My name is Jennifer Stiles Clark, and I'm here also to talk about the Union County 74X CATS bus. I have been a resident of unincorporated Union County for 9 years. I've been a Bank of America employee and a bus commuter for about the same amount of time. I read the PowerPoint materials that were supplied with today's meeting about the bus. I hope you did the same. I wanted to point out a couple of things in regards to those. The ridership doesn't account for the last 2 months that riders have been on the bus since August. And since that time, the bus lane has opened, which means there's been a lot of publicity. It's actually saving people time, and ridership has increased since that bus lane has opened for the first time in 6 years. The other thing I noticed is it states that future ridership is recovering, but not anticipated to grow to pre-COVID levels due to the remote work options. I just want to say, I don't think that that puts enough accountability on the Union County Board of Commissioners for their part with the bus routes. I've been riding this bus for a while. It's been decreased from 3 routes a day to 2 routes a day. The Monroe stop and the Marshville stops have both been eliminated on this route, and I've really failed to see where the commissioners have tried to prevent all of those things from happening. When there's less options for people to ride the bus at different times, and when there's less options for people to get on the bus, that is decreasing ridership. So it's not just about remote work. This is about conscious decisions that Union County is making to make it more difficult for people to get on the bus. I live in Wingate. It used to take me 15 minutes to drive to Monroe to the bus stop. Now it takes me 30 minutes to drive to Indian Trail just to get on the bus. And in a normal circumstances, that is very inconvenient. But this year in particular, I have been diagnosed with a disorder that it has decreased my mobility a lot. And so as a person with a disability, I'm finding it more difficult to be able to accommodate my getting into work. And so the bus has been something that's really important for me due to all of these circumstances. So without this bus being operational anymore in the future, it would really not be physically possible for me to live in Union County because of the commute that I make. So I'd like to bring that to light because I don't think that I'm the only one that is facing adverse circumstances of this nature. So please don't make this the county that buses don't go to, that is not friendly to the disabled, and that lacks sustainable public transportation, and consider renewing this bus for the future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nam Nguyen.
Hello, Board of Commissioners. My name is Nam Nguyen, and just want to say thank you to each of you for everything that you do for this great county every day. So thank you very much. I'm here also here to plead you to reconsider continual funding for Bus 74X as well. My family and I have been living in wonderful town of Indian Trail for 8 years now, and I've been a regular rider of the bus since, and I can tell you it's really, really convenient. Beside the convenient perspective, and also, of course, helping to do my part to reduce pollution, the bus has been a saver for me financially. And because I've been trying my best to maintain a very old car, and if it wasn't for 74X, my car had been dead a couple years ago, and I would not then and now have money to purchase a newer used vehicle. And as you all know, cars are so expensive nowadays, even for an older used car. And from a financial perspective, it's helping me tremendously, and it's really a saver. And we'd like to ask for you to continue to fund the bus. And I also agree with my previous fellow riders that we're definitely seeing more and more new people riding with us as we see the new bus lane opening as we get closer downtown, and it's very, very convenient. So Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Our next speaker is Liz Washington.
I from Indian Trail, and I want to say thank you for your time and opening the floor for us to discuss the 74X. And I'm new to it, and I'm impressed because I'm new to the county, and I love that there is that option to go to work that way, because it would definitely reduce the amount of accidents I have seen from people coming from all states with all their different driving habits. So I appreciate this bus, so I can get to work on time without excuses. And I want you guys, please, to continue the service with this 74X bus, because this community is growing and there's more people coming in. So I appreciate that, and it's really efficient, I believe. It's cost effective, and again, the population is growing. So I appreciate that service that's here. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Greg, is that Mazzal?
Mazzilli, the baseball player, unfortunately not related.
Like Lee Mazzilli?
Yes,
baseball player.
not
Greg
related.
Mazzilli.
Correct. Good evening, commissioners, distinguished guests. My name is Greg Mazzilli. I'm a resident of Indian Trail. I'm also a rider of the 74 Express bus, and I'm here to plead with you to ask you for your support, continued support for the 74 Express bus. The 74 Express bus is a vital artery for us getting to and from uptown Charlotte. When we first moved to Indian Trail, within a few months, my next door neighbor, his wife was driving on Independence, and she lost her life 2 weeks before Christmas. That shows you the sometimes dangerous driving practices and habits on Independence. One day I was taking my family to the airport, and right in front of us we saw a hit and run accident take place 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I bring us all up to say that it provides us with an artery to uptown, and it also improves the quality of life of the residents of Union County. And I think that's a very, very underappreciated aspect of the 74 Express bus. Without the 74 Express bus, I would not be able to pick up my children on time from practice, or take my daughter to cheerleading, or just be there as a father and be in a well-balanced mood versus being white-knuckled on the steering wheel, driving on Independence day in and day out. I understand that ridership has not improved as much as we would like. It hasn't gone back to pre-COVID measures, but I would like to point out that with the limiting of the stops taken by CATS back in June, as well as with the opening of the express lane on 74, ridership has gone up. And we anticipate ridership going up even further as we at Bank of America, the majority of my colleagues that spoken before me came from Bank of America or with Bank of America. We're spreading the word around. The president of the market, Keith Cockrell, has gone ahead and asked for us to go ahead and support this as a vital artery for both the 74 Express and the 64, which is, in Matthews. But the 74 Express is a vital, vital artery to those of us in Union County, and I ask that you guys continue your support for it. Thank you. Have a great night.
Our next speaker is Indian Trail Mayor David Cohn.
It's nice to be here. It's nice to see you guys and girls, all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I came to thank you guys tonight for a lot of things that you're doing. We got a lot of things happening in Indian Trail right now, and I will talk about the bus here in just a minute. But we're working together on some water projects also. We're working on Emerald Woods, where we have a couple of neighborhoods that are on well water and have bad water. And I see that Emerald Woods now is under construction. It should be completed by 2025. March of 2025 was the last I heard, and that's all good news, and I wanted to thank you for that. Also wanted to thank you for Moore's Park. I know that's in design now, and your guys are doing the design. I think you'll start working on it and maybe later in 25 and hopefully complete it in 26. We have, from that particular neighborhood, we have people show up at all of our meetings, and they're there always wanting to know what the progress is. And of course, we always like to give them some sort of progress. And again, thank you for that. And you know, we're working together on that. We're both working hard. Also, the Heritage South neighborhood, which is it's got the sewer smell in that neighborhood. I talked with some of those residents recently, and they seem to think things are going in the right direction. I believe this next month or in a month or so, you're going to have the pilot program ready to go. So test it out, and hopefully that's going to work. And I think they have all the confidence in the world that it's going to work, and we'll take it from there. So another good project that we're all working with. Next, the bus. And I keep an eye on that bus. It's on 74. It's by the food line, and I go to that food line a lot, too much sometimes. But anyway, I check it out. I have some of my friends that ride the bus, and I don't know if anybody's mentioned tonight that, you know, the Charlotte has opened up the bus lane is express now. And I was asking Greg, he can get from Indian Trail to Charlotte in 25 minutes. That's much quicker than you can get in a car. Man, it can take you an hour or so to get to Charlotte if you don't have an express lane to go all the way. So I just think that's going to grow better and better and better over time. So I'm hoping that we can continue to keep working together, and Indian Trail will, I believe, continue to fund that on their part. And we have a lot of people from Monroe and Wingate and some of the other places that are coming to Indian Trail and riding the bus. We have Mike McLaurin with us tonight, our town manager, and our assistant town manager, Adam McLam. I think y'all probably know Adam and Mike, and they're also here. And I just wanted to say also thank you, JR, for your and David, your service, because I know you won't be coming back next year, and this might be the last time I get to see you guys up here. So thank you for everything that you've done, and I want to thank all of the commissioners for working with Indian Trail, and I hope you continue to. So it's nice being here.
Our next speaker is Joel Down.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm going to be the only one probably speaking off topic today of the Indian Trail bus project, but I am here to actually compliment. I was down at Cane Creek Park this weekend, and I've been down there a couple of times in the general park area where the little beach is and whatnot. But this past weekend, we had some friends that were camping out at the campgrounds, and I'd never been there. My family is not much of a camping family, but that's a different time for a different thing for a different time. But we were down there, and I was surprised by I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it was very well maintained. I want to just compliment the staff in general, as they do a great job down there. It is very well kept. Anyone that has not been down there, I would highly suggest you take a trip some weekend down there. As many of you may not know, actually, it is free during the fall and winter season when it's not the most popular time, but it is only a very small $4 per vehicle, I think it is, or something like that, during the summer, which they also have great opportunities down there for you to take a swim in the lake down there. But I just want to compliment the staff and everyone down there, and thank you for having that project. Obviously, that's probably been a way that before I was even born, so I just want to thank you for continuing to maintain that. I also want to address the public as a whole, and as many of us know, tomorrow is election day, and I just want to continue to encourage those who haven't done so to go out and vote. It is a very important civic duty that most people or a lot of the population in the world don't have an opportunity to elect their leaders like we do in the United States, and so you should be thankful for that and go out and vote. I also want to urge the public, barring whatever may happen tomorrow, or it may be days or weeks following, that there may be no riots or protests. Obviously, this applies to the county more specifically, but as really a whole throughout the world, although this may not be going throughout the world, but that there may not be riots or protests or any types of violence, no matter what the outcomes may be, obviously that being at the most national levels. So thank you very much, and hope you guys have a great night.
Are there any other speakers who have not signed up who wish to speak at the public comments? The next three items on our agenda are public hearings. Before opening the first public hearing, I'll read the rules that will apply for members of the public wishing to speak at any of these public hearings. Each speaker must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they are residents of Union County, and indicating the municipality within which they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks. A tone may sound at the conclusion of your remarks. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers shall limit their remarks to the subject of the public hearing. Speakers may leave written comments and/or supporting documents, if any, with the clerk to the board. The first public hearing is item number 24-700 regarding the proposed schedules of values, standards, and rules for the 2025 Union County reappraisal. I will open the public hearing and recognize Van Harrell, Tax Administrator, for comments from county staff.
Good evening. We're here to talk about taxes again. Well, more specifically, property values. At the last meeting, we presented you with the schedule of values for the 2025 reappraisal. We all know by this point that the effective date of that is January 1st, 2025. Under North Carolina general statutes, before the schedule of values can be adopted officially, a public hearing has to be held once that schedule has been presented, and that's the purpose of this meeting tonight. That's all I got.
We have no public speakers from the public signed up for the public hearing. Are there anyone here that wish to speak in this public hearing that has not signed up? I will now close the public hearing. The next public hearing on our agenda is item 24-738 for conditional rezoning petition number 2024 CZ004 Stevens. I will open the public hearing and recognize Bjorn Hansen, Senior Planner, for comments from county staff.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Manager Matthews. This is a conditional rezoning called the Stevens rezoning for the property owner. There's a lot of words here because there are some boundary revisions, recombinations of several parcels. Some are residential, some would become part of a light industrial parcel, so that's why the description is so long. The following conditions are associated with the site plan on the next slide, that the buildings will be brought into compliance with all the building code, zoning, environmental health requirements associated with them, and that they'd meet the overall UDO. So this is the site plan. You'll see on a subsequent aerial there is a septic field and porta potty contracting business located here, and 3 homes located on the other parcels in the front. And so the request is to rezone this to be light industrial. There has to be some adjustments to the property lines to accommodate the uses, as well as incorporate appropriate setbacks and landscaping that may be required as a part of it. So that's why the description gets complicated. The site is on the upper left. You can see there's a lot of gravel, some employee parking, and some material storage and vehicles. This is the view from New Salem Road. You really can't see it. It's up and over the hill. Looking west on New Salem, this intersection will have a roundabout in the next few years. And then looking east on New Salem, this is towards the recently opened water treatment plant. So in terms of development status and the nearby area, this just shows that there's a lot of large lot residential nearby that hasn't been developed. In terms of environmental features, you can see the aerial surrounding the area. These dots are for looking for septic fields, so it's not like it was a bombing site or anything. But you can see the use. You have houses up here, there's a stream, and this is an accurate depiction of the uses on site right now. In terms of the zoning, the whole area is zoned RA 40, and again, you can see on the aerial over here just to the east, the water treatment plant. In terms of transportation, again, funded roundabout at Lawyers in New Salem. New Salem road traffic, about 3,500 vehicles per day. This rezoning would not result in an appreciable increase in the traffic because the use is already there. Land use map, this area is recommended as rural residential. You'd have to go down towards US 74 and the bypass several miles to the south to identify a appropriate employment area for light industrial uses. Because it's commercial in nature, UCPS were not consulted. Water is available along New Salem Road, and water would have to be connected to the impacted buildings that were recently installed. They'd utilize septic for sewer service, and the appropriate buildings would be connected to permitted septic systems as a condition of this development. There was a community meeting held in September as a requirement of this process. One attendee who owned a parcel immediately to the west and is going to build a house there in the near future is concerned about the view of future buildings because there is a small area noted on there for future expansion, including a building. No changes were made due to the comments. No one spoke about this at the Land Use Board meeting a few weeks ago. Monroe and Unionville were not consulted due to the lack of proximity to their municipal limits. There are pluses and minuses. The negatives are that the land use plan identifies this area as rural residential. This is a light industrial proposed use. It will facilitate ongoing and potential future industrial uses in the area. Once you have an area identified as industrial or non-residential, it makes it easier for subsequent rezonings to be justified, and could result in increased congestion on the roads and streets nearby to the property. And traffic congestion is a noted concern in the comprehensive plan. Positive is that there is an existing business there. It'll be contained on the parcel, and they'll give flexibility for the business that already exists, and that it can meet our development standards. Mainly because of the land use plan conflict, we recommend denial. The planning board recommended approval, citing the history of the business operating at this location without issues. So the applicant is here to answer any questions you may have or provide additional background. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bjorn, how close is the property to the treatment plant, if you can go back to the map?
A few hundred yards at most.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Hanson? Any questions for the applicant? Would the applicant like to be heard?
Yeah. I appreciate the time. And I'll make this quick. Been in business for about 23 years out of the same setting. I don't know, could have done work for some of y'all. Don't know if I have or not. But at the same time, our business is pretty much regulated right now as far as where we're at. The growth is not going to be like super growth. In fact, if we do, we'll have to branch out in other places. It's pretty much established where it's at, and I mean, I don't plan on like buying 5 more acres and rezoning that industrial. In fact, I mean, you know, I didn't even know that this was possible, or I had to do this when we started the business. And again, we didn't realize how much it would grow in such a short season. But you know, it's been 23 years, and it's been at the same spot. The water treatment plant's across the road. There's a church they just built right down the road, probably a half a mile. They usually run between 75 and 100 cars out there. So I don't think ours is any more impacted than some of the settings that they have around us as far as that goes.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There are no speakers that have signed up from the public for the public hearing. Is there anyone here who has not signed up that wishes to speak at the public hearing? I'll now close the public hearing. The next public hearing on our agenda is item 24-751 concerning a Step 3 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $374,000 over a 5-year period for Cell Ethics Marketing Group Incorporated, Project Ethics. I will open the public hearing and recognize Ron Mail, Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission Interim Director, for comments. Mr. Mail.
Chairman Rao, Commissioners, Manager Matthews, it's my pleasure to bring before you tonight an Economic Development Incentive Grant request from Cell Ethics Marketing Group Incorporated, otherwise referred to as Project Ethics. Cell Ethics Marketing Group is the largest regional food and analytics agency in the Southeast. They serve as manufacturer reps for the thousands of food products sold in virtually every grocery store in the region. Locally, they call on Harris Teeter, Food Lion, Publix, Walmart, and all of the dollar stores. Currently located in Mecklenburg County, they have been in business for 25 years. The project under consideration is a $17 million investment in a new 35,000 square foot office headquarters that would be built on 6 acres in Stallings at the corner of Stallings Road and Richard Baker Drive. The project would bring 89 full-time positions to Union County, paying an average of $85,000 per year. Our office and the company began discussing this opportunity earlier in the summer, and the company has indicated that incentives are a very important factor for the project. Tonight, we're requesting your consideration of a Step 3 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $374,000 paid over 5 years, based on the Union County Tax Office's appraised value each year, on the company's anticipated investment of $17 million in this new headquarters facility. Based on this investment, the company would pay estimated ad valorem taxes of just under $500,000, $499,800 over the grant period. Of course, actual tax revenue to Union County will be based on the current tax rate applied to the assessed value of the investment each year. As we do with all of our projects, we performed a cost-benefit analysis, and this project shows a 3.08 to 1 return over the first 5 years of the project or the grant period, and that increases to 4.50 to 1 return over the life of the project. We shared this project with the Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission Board of Advisors at their October 9th meeting, where they unanimously recommended that we bring this forward to you tonight for your consideration. Therefore, the Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission staff recommend the award of this Step 3 performance-based Economic Development Incentive Grant to Cell Ethics Marketing Group Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $374,000 to help secure this $17 million investment. At this time, it's my pleasure to recognize Mr. Joel Barham, who is President and CEO of Cell Ethics Marketing. And along with Joel, we have Darren Lathan, who is Executive Vice President of Sales. They're available to answer any questions you might have, as am I. So with that, thank you.
Any questions for Interim Director Mail or Mr. Barham or Mr. Lathan?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Just a quick question, Ron. So, as I understand it, that this would also be contingent on creation of new jobs, correct?
It is. Our policy requires that when a company comes in that is new to the county, that new jobs are created.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Any other questions? Mr. Mail, do they want to be heard? They don't have to be if they don't want to.
Just if you have any questions.
Okay. No further questions. Okay. I will now close the correction. There's nobody signed up to speak in this public hearing. Is anyone here that hasn't signed up that wishes to speak at this public hearing? I'll now close the public hearing. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda and consent agenda. Are there any motions or discussions regarding either the consent agenda or the business agenda?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two amendments. The first is an amendment to the consent agenda. I would like to move item 24-747. That is budget amendment, additional funding for seasonal influenza efforts for farm workers to business. And then the second item would be that we table item 24-771, and that would be other post-employment benefits, the options actuary study results update to a later time.
Any discussion on the vice chairman's motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. We are now at the business portion of our agenda. The first item of business is item 24-752. Consider a step 3 economic development incentive grant for Cell Ethics Marketing Group Incorporated, Project Ethics, in an amount not to exceed $374,000 over a 5-year period. I will recognize Ron Mill, Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission Interim Director, again for this item.
Thank you. Chairman Rao, Commissioners, any other questions? Be happy to answer those.
Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Vice Chair.
I will make the motion to first award the step 3 economic development incentive grant in the amount not to exceed $374,000 over a 5-year period. And then also number 2, authorize our county manager to negotiate and execute an agreement substantially consistent with this agenda item.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed? The next item of business is item number 24-648, Union County Transportation 74X Express Bus Service Update. I will recognize Bjorn Hansen, Senior Planner, for this item.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Williams.
Just a quick point of information. Did we approve the consent agenda as amended? I mean, I thought I heard Commissioner Helms move an item from consent to regular, and then also move to table an item, but I don't recall that the consent agenda as amended was approved.
Well, I believe that it was, but I sure can stand to be
If
corrected.
I missed that, then that's my bad.
Well, we can revisit that just to make sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if you wish to do that, that's certainly fine. The consent agenda stands as amended. It does not have to be separately adopted, although sometimes the board goes ahead and takes that step. It's not formally required.
I didn't hear, or perhaps I just missed it, that the consent agenda wasn't approved, so, but that's fine. I mean,
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Hanson.
Good evening again. This is a presentation to provide an update on the topic that several riders and the mayor of Indian Trail spoke eloquently about. And this is something that was requested to be brought back up nearly a year ago when you authorized funds for this fiscal year to get an update on how performance was to reconsider it. So background, this service has existed for about 20 years. Like was mentioned, it has been steadily whittled down over the years. It started off going to Marshville, then to Monroe. It had 4 runs per day. Now it's down to 2, only from Indian Trail. That is absolutely correct, that a transit service is much more useful when it has more options. And ridership did plummet during COVID. It was not unique to this route. It wasn't unique to CATS. It was nationwide. It has been recovering some in line with other express bus routes throughout the region. And there's 2 ways of counting ridership. There's transactions, and then there are the automatic, essentially personnel counters. So people hitting a sensor, crossing the door, going in and out of the bus. There were some errors with the fare box calculations in the past, so it's hard to give an apples to apples comparison using the new, better APC counting to go back and ridership from 10 plus years ago. Ridership is recovering, but it's not expected to grow to pre-COVID levels due to remote options, but also because, honestly, ridership was declining in CATS before COVID. Ridership peaked in the CATS system a decade ago when it was 20+% smaller city and had probably 20+% less congestion than it does now. So these are just the dynamics that are kind of counterintuitive, but that's what's been happening in this region. And Union County Transportation has increasing requests for demand response service. You heard in your most recent board meeting a couple weeks ago about our aging population, how that's expected to increase over time. Among all age groups, but particularly our older population, and then our population with disabilities. This is a presentation that looks at, or a slide that looks at ridership, any kind of notes that are relevant, the cash cost to Union County, and then the grant cost. The key is that we have a federal grant that we've been eligible for the past 5 years that has provided an influx of dollars that are available to help pay for services like this. But if we don't use our own local money to draw down that grant money, you will save the dollar in Union County dollars, but you'll lose the dollar that could go to pay for the express bus or Union County Transportation demand response services. So Indian Trail's been a partner for the last 2 years. You can see that the cost to Union County has been decreasing significantly. And the ridership had also been decreasing significantly. It cost more a decade ago, but we had really good ridership. And then it was decreasing. And then it really decreased during COVID, and now it's coming back some. The dynamic is that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, pretty strong ridership. Mondays and Fridays are when you see people taking hybrid, work from home type of days, and that means that your ridership is lower during those days. But when you average it out, you get to essentially what you were before. The ridership we have year to date is only July and August, so people vacation during those days. So yeah, these numbers are probably a little bit lower than what they would be otherwise. And we have heard anecdotally that the reopening of the express lanes along much of US 74 and Charlotte has helped. The partnership with Indian Trail, it was a 2-year agreement. It expires next June. It was increased a little bit, so it's approximately $20,000 a year. Indian Trail has expressed willingness to continue the partnership, and we would need to redo the interlocal to continue it into the future. We took this to the tab last week. Indian Trail manager spoke at that meeting, and the tab recommended that the service continue with a 5-year interlocal to give stability to Indian Trail, to the riders, to CATS, and so that was the recommendation from tab. The options, you don't have to make a decision tonight, but we want to hear in terms of what additional information you need to make a decision. And that needs to be done no later than the January 21st board meeting in order to give the 150-day notice to CATS to unwind the service if that is the direction. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. We have representatives of Indian Trail if you have more questions for them about the particulars, but we're asking for guidance in order to work up the formal presentation to you for a decision in the near future.
Any questions for Mr. Hanson? And like Mr. Hanson said, we have the distinguished mayor, town manager, and assistant town manager from Indian Trail. Would y'all like to to address the board. You don't have to. You can if you want to, if you want to give us further information.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. It's always a pleasure to be here. Ms. West, good to see you also. Very quickly, for those of you who know me, I have spent a number of my years working at Central Line Regional Council. And over those years, one of the things we have seen is to make a community strong, we have to work together. And that's why the mayor has talked about the many partnerships that we have with the county and will continue to have with the county. The other part about making our communities strong is giving people choices. We know that we can't build enough roads to get people out of this problem, so we have to give people choices. You've heard the comments tonight. You've got letters in your packages of how the 74X bus has helped individuals in situations where they've lost their car or for whatever. So what I want to tell you tonight is I think the manager's recommendation is certainly the right course of action. We've worked together for many years. And, you know, hopefully the board will agree to continue to fund it, and we'll continue to work together on this particular partnership. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. McLaurin? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Hanson, thank you for the update. I think instead of conducting any votes, could you continue to give us updated information as time goes on as far as ridership, things like that, before we conduct the final vote?
We might get another month's worth of ridership. It's always lagging behind a month or two as they
Right.
QA everything, but that number is not going to materially change the choice that you have. It's not going to go from 35 to 135. It might go to 40. So, you know, that's really the only new information we have. If you wanted us to start working on an interlocal in terms of what numbers would be mutually agreeable, at least at the staff level on a interlocal with Indian Trail, that's the type of information we could provide to help you make a decision at an upcoming meeting. Obviously, their town council needs to approve, so it probably won't be in 2 weeks. But if that's the type of direction that would be helpful, we can do that.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes. So again, a decision doesn't really have to be made until prior to January 21st, because we need to be able to notify CARTPO what we're doing if we're going to continue. So you don't have to make a decision, and we can certainly bring you back additional information on ridership. I think all Bjorn is pointing out is we don't anticipate significant spikes or increases in that, but we're happy to bring you back whatever ridership information we have between now and the time you want to make decisions.
All right. Is that the will of the board? Everybody okay with that? All right. Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
All right.
The next item of business is item 24705, the Union County 2050 implementation recommendations, the school siting follow-up discussion. I'll again recognize Mr. Bjorn Hanson for this item.
I should have read the agenda more closely. Wouldn't have turned around. So, good evening again. This is an update from a few weeks ago where we presented the recommendations on school siting and some other considerations as a part of the comprehensive plan implementation. So again, it was adopted about 3 years ago. These recommendations came out of committees in mid-2022. Planning Board made its recommendations a couple months later. You first heard it in September. You can approve, amend, deny any of these recommendations. No text amendments are proposed tonight. We are waiting on the complete list of directions from the board before we bring that to you as a packet. Again, these are the strategies that you discussed last month, or actually about 6 weeks ago. The ones at the top were the key discussion. Didn't necessarily care for the special use permit, but the others had support. You just had some questions, such as the 2 or more driveways into school sites, the buffers, the advocating for modifying the general statute requiring the DOT to pay for road improvements, allowing natural surface play areas in those side buffers, talked about sidewalks. So these are the specifics that we mentioned. Again, you wanted more information about smaller schools. We'll get into some examples to show how this applies in the real world. And then the special use permit versus by right with additional standards for the approval of schools. That's just getting into the fact that if there are specific requirements that you like, such as the 2 driveways, such as the buffers, such as the play areas or setbacks from the roads, if the site can meet those standards, you could say, well, then this is approved with those conditions. I think the road hierarchy that we talked about, that worst case scenario of a school being located on a cul-de-sac neighborhood road might be an example of where some road hierarchy consideration might come into play. And then you talked about the sidewalk requirements of whether they should just be required for everything or whether we should rely on our current comprehensive transportation plan, which is what we use for making sidewalk requirements on all other proposed uses. So what do we currently require? Again, schools are reflected under the zoning that they're found in. You can put a school in any of these zoning districts, and the front and rear setbacks are based on the underlying zoning, not on the use. So in large lot residential, it's 40 feet. In business, 25 to 40. In industrial, it goes to 50. And then the sides range anywhere from 12 to 20. These apply to the buildings, the parking, to a certain degree. The driveway lanes are allowed. Parking areas can encroach into the setbacks. The concern that we've heard is that these are very intense uses, often next to residential, and so you end up with a lot of traffic, especially with the school pickup and drop off, where they're in these setbacks, and the setbacks aren't doing the job that they were intended to do, which is to buffer that use. The school itself, the school's quiet. It's the traffic to and from that often is the problem. So considering the intent of the setbacks is what we're talking about here. In terms of specific school sites, this is one off of Brooms Old Mill, and this is 130 students. We weren't really sure of what was the threshold for a small school, so this one's approximately 10 acres, including the ball field to the left. You can see that this building is 25 feet away from the property line. This is residential down here, and their building is 80 feet from the right-of-way to the front. Then you go to another example off of Matthews Weddington. They have a lot of setback from the building to the right-of-way, but the property line to the driveway, you can see this is 4 lanes wide, 5 lanes wide. For pickup and drop-off, it's 15 feet to the edge of a residential area. And then the driveway, which would be the undisturbed area, this is 90 feet. So this is an example where the front setback, this more than meets it, but where the side setback, it doesn't get at that intent of having the natural buffering against it. And this is 700 students, so it's small in terms of acres, but not necessarily small in terms of enrollment. Then one that's kind of in the middle, this one's smaller yet in terms of acreage, approximately 6, but 400 students enrolled. This is off of Newtown Road. Again, you have 25 feet to the edge of the property line. The building, the parking lot's only 50 feet and 15 feet for the building. So again, you have some areas where it doesn't meet the recommendations. So these are examples of what that would look like. And then lastly, this is Prospect Elementary, so we do have a UCPS example is here, and this one has 0 feet to the property line. It is right on it. The buffer in the back, 35 feet, so getting close to what's recommended, and the parking lot goes right up to the property line as well. So you can see the dynamic of when you have it very close to the road, and this is in a very rural area compared to having those large setbacks. So these are different examples of smaller schools, relatively speaking, in terms of the layout and how that would apply to, or how our current standards and how the proposed standards would apply in a situation like this. So we're looking for guidance in terms of which of the strategies early on that we listed that you wanted to, you had a preference for and you wanted to hear more about, that you would like us to develop ordinance language for, as well as addressing the approval process, whether it would just be by right with some additional conditions or whether it would go through the special use permit process.
Can you go back to, do you have the list of what those items? Yeah.
This one?
Yes, please. So, Mr. Chairman, again, board doesn't necessarily have to make any decisions. Staff is just looking for, is there any direction you want to give us so that, you know, we can move forward with this or not? If the board doesn't want to make any changes to school siting requirements, I think we've indicated that public schools did have some concerns about the special use permit requirement. We do not have to have a special use requirement. We can provide performance standards within the zoning requirements. But by doing that, that applies to all school uses. So it's really a, you know, it's a, which one do you prefer? If you want a special use permit, then those conditions are specific to the school that's asking for the request. If you're doing it by performance requirements, then all schools, regardless, have to meet those performance requirements. Just to let you know that if you wish to have some standards related to the size of the school, I believe we can do that. We can say, okay, for schools that are under a certain size, whatever that number is, 100, 200, whatever, then their requirements are much lower. And for those schools that are above that, their requirements are higher. So we can do it that way and distinguish it by size, but not by the actual owner of the property. So whether or not it is a public school, a charter school, or a private school, it's really more about the land use.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I'll pretty much repeat, echo what I said the last time we deliberated on this. I mean, I think property-specific solutions are a mistake. A special use permit would be a mistake, but I like the idea of incorporating performance thresholds, you know, especially regarding size, into our land use requirements. And maybe instead of having just, you know, maybe that can entail multiple categories, multiple thresholds. I mean, not just above and below a certain student population, but perhaps there could be tiers. But I like that solution far better and would encourage that we direct staff in that direction. Thank you.
I tend to agree with Commissioner Williams, especially on the special use permit, not requiring that.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
So, you know, we went into a lot of detail in our last meeting about each and every one of these items. And I think that, you know, when you look at this through the lens of larger schools, I think that many of these items, namely the ones that we liked at our September meeting when we first discussed this, I think that they are, you know, very applicable. And this is something that, you know, UCPS especially is doing already with new schools that are being built. And I think that Commissioner Merrill made this comment, I believe, at our September meeting, that a lot of these are safety concerns. You know, things like requiring 2 or more driveways, the buffer areas, you know, 75 feet on the front, 50 feet on the sides and the rear. I think that a lot of these things are safety oriented. You know, it troubles me a little bit to see some of those smaller schools in the examples that you showed that are right there on the property lines. And it troubles me to see, how those property lines are right there backed up against residential. As a father of 2 small children, that makes me a little uneasy. And so I like the idea of having, these increased buffers, especially when this is something that, our partners there with the school board and UCPS are doing already. So I like that idea. But I'm also not, I'm not opposed, to looking at what this would look like for smaller schools as well. I will say this, that, this come up in our last meeting, that the requirement for the sidewalks, and, I kind of went back and forth with this one. The requirement for the sidewalks, the last thing that we want to do is require sidewalks that go nowhere. And these are going to make sense for some schools, they're not going to make sense for others. And so if there's no clean way to differentiate, how that looks, maybe with the type of road or whatnot, I wouldn't be in favor of making a blanket requirement for sidewalks. Again, I think it makes sense, for some, but certainly not for others. Thank you.
So, I see the board, having some concerns, and I'll offer this, and you tell me whether this is acceptable or not. How about the staff and I work on a proposal and bring you that proposal of school sightings broken down by tiers and these categories, and then give you something to react to. So essentially, we will say, for schools that are, and this is not the number, I'm just using it as an example, 100 students or less, here are the standards that we would recommend for 100 students or less. Here are the standards for 101 to 250. Bring that to you and then let you react to those. Like them, don't like them, want to adjust them. And then that way, we're not having to sit here and have the board try to decide whether you like that or not. You can say, tweak this number a little bit more. Would that be something you would be acceptable for us to bring back? And it would take us some time. This would not happen in a month. It would take us probably a couple of months to work on this.
Mr. Merrill.
So, County Manager, I certainly would be open to that, but I would also, I remember many, many years ago, the Board of Education for the public schools voted on what the policy was going to be, how many students they would have for elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. So, I would ask you to look at that, to break it down in those 3 different categories, because the traffic at an elementary school is very different than a middle school or a high school that has activities and athletics and stuff, 6 days a week, from sun up way past, late hours in the evening. So I would take those categories into consideration too, because some elementary schools might have 400 or 500 students, but then some elementary schools might have 800. So I think it would be wise to use Union County Public Schools as the model and see what because they have been successful, and see what their student population is for elementaries, middles, highs, and then take into consideration with staff the traffic concerns that would be very critical for a high school but would not be necessary for an elementary school. So I would make that recommendation to you and staff to look at that.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Yeah, just for clarification then, do we need a motion on this then, or
I don't need a motion as long as I don't hear any objections, which I haven't heard any objections. So I think we'll take it on upon ourselves to give you some solutions for you to chew on, so to speak. Yes.
Good. I think everybody's good with that. Mr. County Manager, if you'd do that, bring that in the future, we sure would appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
Yes, sir.
Up next on the business agenda is item 24-767. Consider accepting the offer to purchase county-owned property. I'll recognize County Manager Brian Matthews for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So previously, we received a offer from Union Academy to purchase the reverter rights that we have to property that they use for, I believe it's pre-K, there on Old Monroe Road. We did receive that. The board made a decision to follow our statutory requirements for an upset bid process. And we put those upset bids out for consideration. We received no upset bids, so the $50,000 offer or bid from Union Academy is the only offer or bid that we have on that. And so what's before you tonight is really, how do you want to handle this? Do you want to accept the offer? Do you want to reject the offer? Do you want to do something different by maybe putting it back out, which the board can certainly do? You can say, we didn't get enough time for people to really make upset bids. We want to put it back out on the streets again. So looking for direction on the board on what we do with the offer that's on the table.
Well, I think because it's a reverter clause, I don't really think we're going to get any other bids because they're only, bidding on the reverter clause and not actually on the property itself. Naturally, we want to get as much as we can, but you have to be reasonable. I just don't see us getting any further bids on that myself. Mr. Vice Chair?
So, first of all, I want to say I'm certainly not opposed to selling the reverter interest that the county has. However, I do have some concerns. I have some concerns with the current offer. And my concern is that, we're talking about 8.15 acres, which, again, the county does not outright own. However, what we do own with this reverter is something of value. And I have significant concerns regarding the amount that we've received in bid from Union Academy. I believe that, essentially the fair market value could be a little bit higher. And, just my opinion that as we look at this, I would be more in favor of reopening the upset bid period to just see if we can encourage Union Academy or, for that matter, any other bidder to consider increasing that bid amount.
Any further discussion?
I'm just going to echo Commissioner Helms's comments. I think $50,000 is extremely low, in my personal opinion, and I am not ready to move forward with that particular offer. If I had to vote on it, I would not support selling the reverter for that amount. I think it's too low, just like Commissioner Helms pointed out. We're talking about 8.15 acres in Union County, and I would like to see a more reasonable offer.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we should go ahead and vote to accept the $50,000 offer. I mean, a reverter interest is not something you see every day. It's not a possessory interest in property. It's kind of like a lottery ticket. And if the use of the property changes, then the holder of the reverter interest kind of wins the lottery, but it's something very unusual and not something that you see a transaction for every day. We have gone through the appropriate process in terms of soliciting bids and soliciting upset bids, and there's been one bidder, Union Academy, and that bid was $50,000. So, I don't really see, the point in, kind of doing this again. I think we should just go ahead and accept the $50,000 and sell the reverter interest to Union Academy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Balkin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say I'm not ready to commit $50,000. I realize this is an unusual process, but we are talking about 8.1 acres on Old Charlotte Highway with a considerable amount of road frontage. And the interest of making a fair trade for the citizens of the county, I would not be ready to take $50,000. I'd rather see if we could do a little better.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and make the motion that that the board reopen the upset bid period for disposal of this real property and direct the clerk to advertise a new upset bid period in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 160A-269. I agree with Commissioner Balcom and Commissioner Merrill's comments. I think that, we have to be good stewards with the assets that the county has. We have to be good stewards to the taxpayers. And I don't think that the intent here is to gouge anybody on what Commissioner Williams referred to as a lottery ticket. And I think that the intent here is to make sure that, we're getting the fair value of what this entails. And so I'll make that motion and defer to the board.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. All opposed?
No.
Nay. The next item of business is item 24-758, economic development withdrawal from the Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission and termination of interlocal agreement. I'll recognize County Manager Brian Matthews for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as the board knows, we've had a relationship with the city of Monroe for a number of years when it comes to economic development. And originally, that relationship was with a city department that operated, and the county just contributed funding towards that city department. And that operated successfully for a number of years. And then more recently, within the last few years, the city and the county joined together in creating an economic development commission. I believe we're at a crossroads at this time. I think the mission of the county has grown beyond what the commission is really able to accommodate. And the reason I say that is that Monroe's focus is Monroe, and it should be Monroe. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the county's focus is growing, that we want to see more out in the unincorporated and other municipal partners that we have in Union County. And this commission is not really set up to really foster that. And I say that because there was an example of where there was a conflict between a project that the county wanted to promote and ultimately what the commission supported, and you had an issue where we were at odds on that. And I don't see that possibility changing in the future, especially if Monroe is focused on their own jurisdiction, as they should be. So it would be my recommendation that the two organizations go their own way, and this is not negative towards the city of Monroe. This is an opportunity, I feel, for us to create a program that is specific to the needs of unincorporated Union County and the other municipalities, that allows us to have the flexibility to go after those economic development objectives that support the county's mission. So it would be my request that the board consider withdrawing from that organization. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, this, I know back in 2022, we formed with Monroe essentially a new entity, a not-for-profit corporation. But prior to that, we operated this essentially as a joint venture, as a partnership, and that extended back to what? To 1996? Is that?
It's been some time. I couldn't give you, but it has been a long
Okay.
time. Yes, sir.
I think that's right, 28 years. So we've been working together with Monroe on economic development for 28 plus years. Now, you're asking today that this board go ahead and approve a notice of withdrawal, right? Now, this board that's a pretty significant decision. I mean, when you look at a relationship that has lasted 28 years, this board hasn't deliberated before on this question, right? This is the first time that the board has deliberated on the question of withdrawal. Now, what are the requirements in the existing agreement between Monroe and the city as regarding the timeline? When can this entity actually be dissolved when we give our notice of withdrawal? And what obligations do we have between giving that notice and the dissolution of the entity?
Sure, and Jason can certainly speak if I say anything that's incorrect. My understanding is once we provide, if the board says that they wish to provide this resolution for withdrawal, that really starts a 2-year time frame in which the two entities would continue to operate as an EDC as long as they wish to continue to operate during that time frame. Of course, the two entities could agree to dissolve earlier than that, but as the agreement states, it's a 2-year time frame. We would continue to share those costs as we do now, and it's a 50-50 cost. So the operation of that entity would still fall upon our shoulders to fund 50% of that.
Okay. So, just because we give a notice doesn't mean it goes away. It lasts for 2 years, barring agreement of both parties to dissolve it sooner. Our financial commitment, our financial obligation continues, absent that. We continue to appoint you, the county manager, and 2 members of this board to serve on the governing body, right? Okay, so that would continue for 2 more years. And those board members, just like board members for any other similar entity, would still have an obligation, a duty of a fiduciary duty, a duty of diligence, a duty of loyalty. Is that correct, Mr. County Manager or Mr. County Attorney?
Are you asking about the county's duty
The members who serve on the board of this entity, they would still have an obligation, just like members of other similarly constituted boards, of a duty of diligence, a duty of loyalty, a fiduciary duty.
It indeed, but that may state it a little bit too far in that we, as an appointing body, are appointing members ex officio, so they serve in those roles out of their office to the county. So at the same time, they wear their duty as a county commissioner hat, as well as their duty to the Monroe Union County EDC. So to take that to its logical end, that they must have a duty of loyalty solely to the EDC.
Not solely.
That would not be incorrect, but they do, in that role on their board,
have a duty to that entity
to oversee it.
All right, thank you. And as I understand it, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. County Manager, but it sounds like, let me find the language here. Direct the commission to vacate office space it is occupying in the county's property located at 1407 Airport Road, Monroe, otherwise known as the Progress Building. That kind of seems problematic, since, we've just confirmed that the members on that board have a fiduciary duty, a duty of loyalty to the entity. Does we seem prepared with tonight's proposed action and the budget amendment to go ahead and start full steam ahead in setting up our own in-house economic development team?
That would be the goal. Obviously, we would want to have discussions with the city of Monroe about ending that partnership sooner rather than later with the 2-year time frame. That is yet to be determined at this point. But yes, sir, it would entail us to start developing our own program.
But absent that consent from Monroe, consent of both parties, we would have a situation if we approve this tonight where we are supporting, we are funding and meeting our obligations for 2 years to the existing Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission, while also building and funding our own separate in-house economic development team.
That is possible, yes, sir.
Okay. And not just possible, but certain if we don't have the consent, again, of both parties and dissolving it before the 2 years. Right? I mean, you would need, it dissolves in 2 years absent consent from both parties.
That is correct. The notice period just triggers that 2-year time period during which the commission would continue to operate in the manner that the board of directors sees fit. And during that time, Union County would be exercising its legal rights pursuant to the statute to set up its own independent economic development department, as presumably the city of Monroe can do as well.
Okay. And my last question, Brian, is this, Mr. County Manager. How did we come up with the figure that's listed in the agenda for the budget amendment, the budget item, the $258,000 and change?
It's based on the current salaries of the employees that are with the EDCs. We use that as a basis.
Right now. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. County Manager, when in this presentation, action requested, were you requesting the board to consider number one, to consider, or were you looking for all 6 items in one motion?
Yes, ma'am. I was actually requesting the board consider all 6 items.
Okay.
Certainly, you could do any number or combination, but I was asking the board consider all 6.
Okay. I was recently at an EDC meeting, and the Progress Building, there have been facility changes and things done to conference rooms and offices that we were not aware of. And quite frankly, I was shocked at some of the construction changes that were modifications that were being done to our facility. So with that being said, I would like to make a motion to, 1, adopt a resolution of the Union County Board of Commissioners withdrawing from the Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission. 2, create an economic development department to be administered by the county manager in accordance with General Statute 153A-82 with direction from the county manager and staff to begin hiring for such departments as soon as practical, as there is not a lease agreement currently in effect for the commission. I would like to direct the commission to vacate the office space it is occupying for the county's property located at 1407 Airport Road, Monroe, North Carolina, also known as the Progress Building. 4, update the pay and classification plan to include new job classifications as follows. A Director of Economic Development at pay grade R, Assistant Director of Economic Development, pay grade P. Number 5, authorize the addition of 3 FTEs, full-time equivalency, in the county manager's office for the following job classifications. For 1 Director of Economic Development, 1 Assistant Director of Economic Development, and 1 Business Manager. And 6, finally, adopt Budget Amendment 11.
Commissioner Merrill,
discussion?
Commissioner Merrill, just a point of clarification on number 3 regarding the vacating of the lease. Would that be as soon as practicable as well?
Yes, I believe I said as soon as practical. Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be voting against the motion. I find it extraordinary that here we've had a 28-year history of the city of Monroe and Union County working together to advance economic development. And I think that record, hopefully all of us can agree, has been very successful over those 28 years. And, you know, as the county manager indicated in his answer to me earlier, you know, this board has not deliberated on this question at all before about whether or not we should withdraw and end this relationship. And here we are tonight presented with a pretty sweeping proposal to give our notice of withdrawal, of termination, to go ahead and appropriate to spend more money, to set up a separate in-house Union County Department for Economic Development, to push out the current Monroe Union EDC from the Progress Building, and to go ahead and start, interviewing and hiring our own staff. And again, we haven't had a presentation on this before. This is the first time we're deliberating on it. You know, I think we should have a presentation. I mean, there are a number of very good questions that I think commissioners should want to ask and get answers to that are both, general and also very specific. I mean, in terms of general questions, I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages to, having a economic development effort, an economic development team in-house as a government, local government entity, versus something that is like what we have now, kind of quasi-independent, which has more flexibility. It's able to innovate. Some of the grant opportunities for more independent economic development entities tend to be better. I think public perception is a very important consideration. How's the public, and specifically how are prospective businesses that might want to move here or might want to expand here, how are they going to react? What are they going to think when they see that after 28 years of working together, this board has decided, without any prior deliberation on this question, we're just going to blow it all up and set up our own in-house department. Now, I think there are certain core functions of government that it absolutely makes sense to do 100% entirely in-house. But I don't think this is one of them. And I think our history as a joint venture basically confirms that you want to have an entity like we have now that stands outside of local government proper, that isn't a government department. And because I think when you have an economic development team that is inside 100% local government, you tend to get more political decisions and more political outcomes to your economic development efforts. So why change what has clearly been a successful formula on how we work together? So, but again, my main objection, I'll just kind of conclude with my main objection, is we have not deliberated on this extremely important question at all before this meeting. And we haven't had a presentation, from staff on, again, questions large and small about what this means. I think how do we navigate through this process where if Monroe doesn't consent to the dissolution of this entity, how do we even navigate through those 2 years while we're building our own department and supporting the existing Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission? How do we avoid the kinds of conflicts of interest, the kinds of issues that arise when you have board members that have, as has been confirmed, a duty of loyalty, a duty of diligence, a fiduciary duty? Those are all important questions. And it may be that if we take this step tonight, that we've got to try to navigate that as best we can over a 2-year period. So I think it's hasty. Hasty is probably too kind a word, but it's hasty to make a decision like this tonight. And I would just strongly encourage, plead with my colleagues to not make a decision tonight. We're going to have 2 new county commissioners on this board next month. That's an opportunity, every December. As I know well, as we all know well, we do another review of who serves where on the various boards and commissions that we all have to do in addition to this job. So let's look at this anew with a new board. Ask some of these hard questions. Again, the questions large and small. And see if we can't, really be more thoughtful about what is a huge decision. And I just think it would be a shame to hastily blow up something that has a 28-year history of working pretty darn well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Helms.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say that I'll be supporting Commissioner Merrill's motion tonight. But I do have a question, and maybe this would be better addressed by our county manager. As far as the EDC is concerned, how many members do we have currently on the EDC?
There are 3 members from the county side and 3 members from the Monroe side.
Okay. So we have 3 members from each party, or, okay. So I think that it's safe to say that in regards to, say, like a conflict of interest or fiduciary duty or other concerns, that there's going to be instances where, Monroe, for that matter, would be focused in on Monroe projects, and their votes were going to align for projects that make sense for Monroe. And I think that there also will be times where Union County is going to be focused in on projects that make sense for Union County and may not involve Monroe, and we've seen some of those as of late. And when you have a governance, if you will, of a economic development commission that is evenly split, where there is no tiebreaker, then I can see where that can cause some problems with getting economic development done. Now, what I want to say is that first of all, I want to make it clear to Monroe that Monroe City Council and the Monroe members of the EDC that, as far as I'm concerned, this is not any kind of indictment on the city of Monroe. We're grateful for the collaboration that we've seen and the effort of collaboration, especially with certain City of Monroe council members. But I think that we have to look at this from a perspective of what makes sense, the best sense for Union County. And Union County's got many other community partners. We have other community partners that are financially invested in things that are important to Union County. Now, that doesn't mean that we're excluding the city of Monroe either, because the city of Monroe physically resides within the borders of our county. And I would say that, at least for my opinion, that we would still have opportunity to work with the city of Monroe on projects that make sense for both parties. And just because we, may tonight go ahead and create an economic development department, that does not exclude those opportunities from coming to fruition. And it's my understanding that, even members of this board shared that same concern as far as the governance of the EDC some years ago when the EDC was formed. So as far as like the 2 years required as far as our termination clause, that could terminate before 2 years if both parties agree. I would just say this, that, just because we've got a 28-year history, it doesn't undo the progress. We're grateful for that progress. But it also doesn't mean that this Economic Development Commission can work well for another 28 years. I think that at this point, once again, we have to do what's best for Union County, and I think that the city of Monroe has to do what's best for the city of Monroe. I believe, I understand where Commissioner Williams is coming from when he's talking about the cost associated with this. I would argue that it's going to cost us more if we let projects die on the vine. So we're already 90% residential and 10% everything else in this county. We need that 10% to grow larger. And how do we do that the most efficient way? I believe that this is a step in that direction. Again, the cost that we see will cost us more in the long run if we fail to take action. So I'll be in support of Commissioner Merrill's motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further from you, Mr. County Manager, on the motion?
No, I did want to echo one of the things that Commissioner Helms did say, and I did not say this earlier, and he is correct. Our partnership with the city is not going to go away when it comes to future economic development projects. We don't have to have an EDC, and we don't have to actually be in the same building working on EDC to partner on projects. We continue to consider economic development grants, and I believe this board will in the future consider economic development grants for projects that benefit the city of Monroe and also benefit Union County, and I don't believe that will stop. So I see that as a partnership that is still going to continue if the board decision to withdraw. I don't see that going away. So I did want to clarify that.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Next on the agenda is item 24-749, appointments to boards and committees. The positions to be filled on the Union County Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee have been advertised in accordance with the board's rules of procedures. Applications have been received, and information regarding the vacant positions may be found in the background provided for this item. I will now entertain a motion for nominations to this committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
As I believe that we only have one applicant, I would make the motion that we appoint Sandra Karg to the Union County Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee.
Any discussion on the appointment of Ms. Carter? All in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The next item on our agenda was removed off the consent agenda, item 24-747, budget amendment, additional funding for seasonal influenza efforts from farm workers. Mr. Dennis Joyner, our Human Services Agency Public Health Director, is here for that item. Thank you, Mr. Joyner.
Thank you. I'll start, I guess, by just giving a quick little overview of what the funding is for, and then Commissioner Helms, you can share what concerns you may have or further clarification. These funds, we're one of, I think, 20 counties in the state that has been given, designated some funding to support making sure that farm workers across North Carolina have access to seasonal flu vaccinations. That's the primary focus for this. These are one-time funds. They don't come around often. In fact, this is the first time that I'm aware that we've ever had the opportunity of these resources. The driver of this is essentially avian influenza that we've seen across the country, and the concern of avian influenza is obviously that you do run the risk over time that could genetically mutate into other more transmissible types of flu that could be problematic for the broader public. So far, avian influenza has been contained primarily in fowl, chickens, poultry. That population has been some mammals that we've seen. Most of these cases have been in the western part, Midwest, and the western part of the U.S. For the most part. North Carolina, we have seen avian influenza sporadically over the past in North Carolina. A lot has occurred in poultry operations, have some in dairy operation. But that is on the animal side. And the concern is, Department of Agriculture manages that. That's not something that we're a part of. There is some, one of the reasons why these funds are out there is that we want to make sure that farm workers are aware that flu vaccination is available if they're interested, and to make that available to them. And for the main reason that if flu vaccine, seasonal flu vaccine, its focus is on seasonal flu. That's what it's going to prevent. It does not prevent avian influenza, but it does improve, lessen the conditions of someone if they do get flu. It lessens the duration oftentimes and the severity. So there are some benefits there. Plus, there's also some concern or question that it would be beneficial to help prevent both exposures occurring at the same time if it were to occur. In other words, an avian influenza exposure along with seasonal influenza. So I know that may sound complicated, but it's trying to align that, if we can lessen that exposure, you don't get the broader reassortment of the virus into problems for humans over time. So that's a long way of saying that was the premise in which the state has been making these funds available to help support that effort. It's $10,000 to help support that effort. We would be primarily looking at just making farm operations aware. We could actually go on site if they're interested. They may not be interested in wanting to provide it. And also, as a part of the conditions under the agreement addenda, it does include making them aware that we have COVID vaccine as well. That is part of the agreement addenda that the state has provided. Again, they would choose that. If they want it, they want it. If they don't want it, they don't get it. So that is kind of in a nutshell as much as I can sort of share with the background and what the intent is, again, as I said, this is the first time that we've had this pot of money, and we may not get it again in the future.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Dennis, first of all, thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for coming up to answer our questions. I had a conversation with our county manager earlier, and I told him, I said, I almost feel bad about pulling Dennis up here to answer these questions, because it seems like, the relationship that you and I have had kind of started talking about things like this, and well, as you close out your career here at Union County, it looks like it's going to end that way too. But thanks again. I really appreciate the information. I do have some questions, and the reason why I asked for this item to be pulled is because of certain things that were included in our agenda packet. So in the background information that we've got in front of us, one of the things that I sort of focused in on was this statement that says that participating local health departments are to focus on removing barriers and expanding their seasonal influenza and COVID-19 vaccination programs. So I guess what I'm asking is, how do we envision removing barriers, and how do we define that? Are we talking about some sort of, marketing campaign? I mean, explain to me, how should I interpret removing barriers?
Yeah, the main thing we're going to focus on is just the making sure that the folks know that they have access, and it's because farm workers, and particularly in this case, this is it'll be communicating with them more individually to find out, do they have interest in it, participating, and then we would go and from there, whether that's go on site to provide it if they have workers that wanted to do it, or just making it available that we have, they can come to the health department to get it. Part of my definition of what barrier means to me in this is increasing accessibility to a population that has some sort of increased risk as it relates to some of the concerns around avian influenza, just to make them aware of the benefits. That's it. I mean, there's not, I'm not envisioning a broad marketing kind of thing, because it's very kind of specific and targeted to a certain population group.
So in regards to the cases of avian flu, how many cases of avian flu have we seen in Union County this year?
Avian flu in animals?
In people.
In people.
Because we're vaccinating
none.
people, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Avian influenza, we've seen none in, there's only been 44 in the U.S. as of my last look at the data in terms of human avian influenza.
So we've got 44 total in the United States.
Yeah.
0 in Union County.
Yeah.
And so I guess the premise behind this, and you explained this, I believe, earlier, is we don't want that transmission to occur, where we've seen cases in livestock or poultry.
Right. If we can help
Right.
reduce and provide a layer of beneficial protection, that's what we're seeking to do.
Sure. And, with these things, Dennis, I mean, what I'm always concerned with is what are the strings attached to the money? Having $10,000, given to us. Listen, I'm not so much concerned with receiving $10,000 as I am what's expected of us to get the $10,000. And so, I think that you kind of alluded to this, but so if I'm hearing you correctly, part of the catch to this $10,000 is we have to say, oh, hey, by the way, we've also got COVID-19, shots available for you should you want it. Is that what I'm understanding correctly here?
I wouldn't necessarily classify it as a catch. It is an element of the agreement addenda with the state that came down as part of the funding. So it's an element. The truth is, I mean, yes, we do have COVID vaccine available to others if they're interested in wanting to get it. Obviously, over the last couple of years have been certainly less and less of that as COVID has sort of created its own path and evolution, but that's just what's in the agreement addenda with the state.
So essentially, it's a requirement for us to receive these funds. We have to
We
let
have
them
to
know.
make it available. We have to let them know it's available.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we've got this available for you.
That's
Yeah.
true. And it could be any other vaccine that might be needed. For example, they may need tetanus as it relates to exposure they have on the farm, which hopefully they're up to date on that, because that would be even a greater risk in some cases.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to be clear, and this is my concern, okay, with something like that is, I don't want anybody from our health department or, for that matter, Union County trying to force something on somebody else, okay, as a condition of receiving $10,000. Yeah, listen, I fully respect the right of the public to choose, whether or not they want these vaccinations or not. And so I pulled this because I also have some concern where I've seen items in the past, be tied to, things like, COVID vaccinations for elderly, okay? And so when we look at accepting $10,000 from the state, for something like this, I need assurance that we're not like proactively going out there trying to force a COVID vaccination on someone. And I need to hear that from staff. And so that's my concern. I want to make sure that, we're being appropriate with how we remove our barriers, because, I understand they can come to the health department.
Yeah.
I get it, okay, I do. But I think that there's a fine line in how we go to bat with something like this, and it's been a concern of mine in the past. I don't want to have marketing, all across Union County's social media that says, hey, we think it's great if you come and do this or that or what have you. I think that we have to be respectful of both sides of this debate. And so, if we have that assurance, that we're not engaging in, stringent marketing campaigns and things like that, then I'm okay with this, as long as we are giving folks the option.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get clarification because that was my concern.
Yeah, no, and that is the case. I mean, it is not, this is not a force operation.
Sure, and I don't mean to say forced, but I guess I just want to make sure that, we don't have to meet like a minimum number here, that there's not some kind of incentive from the state, for us to meet in order to receive $10,000.
No, there's not.
Okay.
No quota or anything.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Merrill?
good to see you tonight. Good to see you tonight. I do have a lot of concerns about this request, and $10,000 in the grand scheme of Union County or any other budget seems like small bait to me. My first question is how are the 20 counties out of 100? Are we not concerned about all farming workers in all 100 counties? Are we saying that there's only farming workers that don't have access to seasonal flu vaccines in the other 80 counties? It seems a little off to me that why are they offering this to 20 counties and all 100 counties? So that's a red flag for me. But I'd like for you to explain to me how the seasonal flu vaccine, because you hear every year, well, this year the flu vaccine really doesn't help this strain, or, it's not, we hear this, with the human vaccines.
Right.
So, then, so while my red flags are up, now I'm asking, well, okay, if strains vary from year to year, what's going to prevent illness in our poultry workers with this particular seasonal. It seems very separate to me. Can you speak to that concern?
Yeah, let me start with the first question, because I don't fully know how they chose the 20, other than I believe, and I feel fairly confident, that that was probably based on the counties that have had active cases of avian influenza in the recent past. And if you look at the numbers of those across North Carolina, it's about 20 or so counties that fall into that category. So I believe that is probably one of the main drivers. These are folks who, counties that obviously there's others who could be at risk. That's clear. But if they have had some experience in the past of having avian influenza in their communities, then that would be a line of demarcation, I guess, to say, well, these are the ones we'll focus on for this pot of money for now. The question you ask about the changing effectiveness and efficacy of flu vaccine, you're right, it does change from time to time, and depending on sometimes whether or not they get the right match, they're trying to do some predicting of that based on Southern Hemisphere exposure and activity, and then accordingly adjusting the production of the vaccine for it to be as effective as possible. The flu vaccine is going to vary in its efficacy and effectiveness from year to year because of those kind of hit and miss. It is pretty clear that for folks who get flu, even if it doesn't totally prevent it, that it does tend to make it less severe for most folks, and certainly that is positive. As it relates again to the benefit for farm workers, it really does hinge on the fact that if we can provide something that protects or prevents them or having less severe seasonal flu, and they're working around farm animals and in that environment where avian influenza actually then does appear, and they have exposure to that, them being protected from seasonal flu, or more protected from seasonal flu, it lessens the risk of there being that genetic reassortment, so that you worry about the genetic mutation where you then get a new human-to-human transmission of flu. So that's the basis for why there's benefit in focusing, or at least giving additional attention to that population and the community that has that exposure that others wouldn't have.
It seems far-fetched to me that a seasonal flu vaccine is going to help a seasonal worker around avian flu. I think all of us are susceptible to seasonal flu.
True.
And as far as the marketing campaign, I'm getting text messages, reminders, come get your flu shot. I've gotten text messages, voicemails, it's on the radio, it's on TV, CVS, Walgreens, they're all duking it out, for everyone to come get a flu vaccine. So with all that being said, prior to this $10,000 offer from the state, has your department ever, I assume y'all offer flu vaccines?
We do.
Or is this your first time offering flu vaccines?
Yeah, we do offer flu vaccine. We primarily make it available for Patients, a lot of the patients that we serve, one of the main reasons, several years ago, we kind of reduced a lot of our general opening up for everybody in the community to come get flu shots, because everywhere else had flu shots, and it was being covered by almost all insurance companies and Medicare, Medicaid, and it didn't make a lot of sense for us to be in that particular market when the market was already saturated with other exposure
Right.
of folks to be able to get it. So I'm not saying we don't have it. We do have it, but it typically is for the patients that we're serving and the various programs that we have is where our primary focus is.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the market and the community is saturated with information on flu vaccine. You can get it at Sam's. You can get it here. You can get it there. You can get it everywhere.
And you can get a gift card.
So, for me personally, I don't know that it's worth taking, $10,000, to do this when there's so much marketing out there. And I just don't know that I can support our county in promoting other, controversial, divisive issues just to get people in the door for a seasonal flu vaccine. So, but I do thank you for answering all my questions and being here tonight. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Joyner, you assure us that no one would be, of course, forced to take any of these vaccines. They're there for the offering if someone comes in and asks for them?
No, sir.
And that's the way it...
No one's going to be forced. And I can speak to the incoming health director.
Mr. Chair, but I just, with that statement, I just want to clarify. Your department offers seasonal flu vaccines regardless.
We offer them primarily for those populations and patients that we are serving, whether that's in child health, our maternity clinic, family planning clinic, those standing clinics, that population base. We don't do adult primary care, so we don't have that environment to offer it. We have some available for folks who have difficulty getting access to it, but it's not, what's the word? It's not a broad exposure to people where come to the health department to get your vaccine. We haven't maintained the quantity for that because there was so many other opportunities, as I'd shared before. That's the reason. So we do have it, but it is limited. It's not like for the general public that, if everybody in the county all of a sudden came and wanted to get it at the health department, we'd have a problem. We just wouldn't have the volume.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair.
So, okay, I just want to circle back to this because, I understand where Commissioner Merrill's going, and I guess I'm just sort of stuck on this. It is a requirement for us to tell them about other vaccines. As a, well, correct, so COVID vaccines, so it's almost like a package deal. We're going to give you this 10 grand, right? We're going to give you $10,000 to provide influenza, so avian flu vaccinations, and then potentially to help with staffing, costs associated with that. But here's the catch. You got to make sure that they know that you can also get these other, it just seems like to me that they're trying to incentivize, other things. And I'm kind of distrustful over that, especially with, such a modest amount of $10,000.
Mr. Joyner, what are there any incentives to doing this?
We're not going to. I mean, if a person has, can benefit from any, I mean, it's just no different if someone's coming in who's in our maternity clinic, and there are certain types of vaccinations in particular that are beneficial for her and the unborn child. You know, we will encourage them and let them know that the vaccine is recommended under these conditions. So we do that as a part of our providing medical care for patients that we're serving. So the fact that someone would come in and they're interested in getting a flu shot or whatever, if they had interest in getting another shot that was indicated for them, we would try to provide that. But it's not like we're out there promoting. It's an interaction with the patient in terms of what their needs and potential risks may be. And it's their choice as to whether or not they want to get that, whatever it might be.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But, Mr. Joyner, you said that, we could potentially have staff going out to these folks, right? To tell them about this,
We could, yes.
this program and possibly even administer, so,
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say earlier is that we would potentially have Union County Health Department staff going out to large farms, to potentially administer avian flu vaccinations, and as a requirement for
Seasonal, yeah.
Okay, but as a requirement for this, we'd also have to tell them about the other stuff that we offer.
Yes.
Now, do y'all go out when you're just requested, or do you, otherwise you don't go out?
No, we're not going out unless we're invited to come.
So it's just like in my doctor's office, they ask me, hey, JR, you want a flu shot this year? You want an RSV shot? And I can say yes, or I can say no. It's the same type of thing.
Same thing.
Commissioner Ball.
All right, so when these folks come in to get the flu shot for the bird flu, the avian bird flu, then you make them aware that the COVID-19 vaccine is available. You make them aware of the other vaccines that are available, correct?
Yeah, if it's indicated for them, their age, whatever.
Okay, I know when.
And I just want to clarify too, there is not an avian influenza vaccine. I just want to make sure the record reflects
Okay.
that. That's not out there. This is seasonal flu vaccine. Yeah.
All right. So I know when the gentlemen who worked for me that come in on the H-2A program, they were required to get the COVID vaccine before they could come in. And this may have been 2 years ago. That requirement, you do not make these folks feel like this is something they must take.
No.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Joyner, or any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, so Dennis, once again, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for answering our questions. Didn't realize that we were going to go that far down the rabbit hole with that one, but I think this is a beneficial discussion. And based off that discussion, I don't know that I'm comfortable with this at this time. And so, for me, I've just got concerns. I've got concerns about, why it is that only 20 counties in the state, not 100. I've got concerns about, why it is that out of 44 cases in the entire country, we're looking at administering this in 20 counties. I've got concerns about the requirement there to make folks aware of other vaccinations. It seems like to me it's a package deal, and for such a modest amount of funding from the state, yeah, something seems off. And so, you know, I may be in the minority here, but I'm going to make the motion that we deny this item, 24-747, and that we do not recognize and receive and appropriate those $10,000 in FY25 funding, and then also do not approve the Budget Amendment 10.
Any discussion on the motion? Now, of course, I certainly respect the vice chairman's take on this matter, but, I mean, we're going to turn down $10,000. We heard that nobody is going to be forced to take any type of vaccine. You can, just like when I go to my doctor, they ask me, do you want this shot? Do you want that shot? I can tell them yes, I can tell them no. There's, I mean, you know, we all have choices in our lives. This is a lot of money to turn down. The state of North Carolina don't give us that much money very often. I sure would like to take it if at all possible. Now, I certainly understand where you're coming from, Mr. Vice Chairman, but I think I'm going to disagree with you on this. Any further discussion? All in favor of the Vice Chairman's motion indicate by aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
Yeah.
I will now recognize the county manager for his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only one thing I have is first off, Commissioner Helms alluded to this. Dennis, our health director, is going to be retiring at the end of December, and we appreciate all his service to the county, and he's going to continue to work for us. But I also wanted to recognize Tracy Colley, who will be taking over that position as our health director, and I'm just very proud and pleased to have one of our fine internal folks to move up into that role, and just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate Tracy. So thank you very much, board members.
It's now time for commissioner comments. We'll start down on the far end, Commissioner Balk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to encourage everyone to go out and vote tomorrow, if you haven't already done so, and just hope you have a good night.
Commissioner David Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo Commissioner Baucum's sentiments. Get out and vote. I'd also like to thank our citizens and elected officials who came and spoke to us tonight. Salaji, Jennifer, Nam, Liz, Greg, Mayor Cohn, Town Manager of Indian Trail, thank you. And we got a lot of comments tonight on the 74 Express service, and I just want to say a few things about that. I think that I would respectfully encourage my colleagues to go ahead and pass the item that we kind of delayed action on tonight. A 5-year agreement where Indian Trail is a willing partner and is contributing financially to the program, I think makes a lot of sense. It was shared that even after we eliminated the Monroe stop, the ridership kind of stayed level or even increased a bit, which I think is encouraging. And to the last thing I'll say is to the citizens who were showed some displeasure at the stops that have been deleted. I would just share this bit of history from our prior deliberations that, as I recall, my colleagues and myself, you know, we eliminated those stops because we didn't have the kind of partnership and financial commitment from those towns that we do see with Indian Trail. So I would encourage those citizens to reach out to your municipal elected officials and municipal staff and encourage them to reach out to the county. And to the extent that we have more municipal partners wanting to work with us on 74 Express and who are willing to perhaps contribute something financially, perhaps we can add those stops back. So just kind of a clarion call to reach out to your municipal local elected officials too, if you'd like to see perhaps some movement on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Melissa Merrill.
I'm just going to wish everyone, a good evening. I want to encourage everyone, if you have not already voted in the early voting period, to please get out and vote tomorrow. And, it's a blessing to live in a country where your one vote does matter. I believe the mayor of Monroe became the mayor on a coin toss this past term. So that's how razor thin some of these positions can be. So I really want to encourage everyone to get out and vote tomorrow if you haven't already. And I think we all need to celebrate what an amazing country that we live in. We are very, very blessed in the United States of America. And I think everyone should go out and do their part. And we'll just go from there, but just come back together as a country and move forward on the very next day. So good evening to everyone. Have a safe trip home, and thank you for participating.
Vice Chairman Brian Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just echo some of the comments that my fellow commissioners made. I thought it was great to see the public participation for the 74X item tonight. I do feel as though at least the price there and the relationship that we have in Indian Trail is in a good place and is moving in the right direction. And so I think it was great to hear the feedback from the folks that actually participate in that. I think that the letters and the emails that we were privy to were also very telling about the importance of that. And at least for my opinion, I think that we're fortunate to have a good partner with Indian Trail for that service. Again, I want to thank all of the folks that came up and spoke today. Appreciate each and every one of you. Also want to thank our staff. Our staff puts in a lot of work, for all of these meetings, and a lot of preparation. And you also got you guys sit here with us. Dennis, thank you once again for being willing to come up here. I hope that we don't have to do this again, in 2 weeks. But thank you for your participation and helping us, with that item. I would also agree. Tomorrow's a very big day. It's a very important day for our country. I would encourage everyone to go out and vote as well. Participate in this wonderful process that we have. Celebrate our country. I thought that was a great remark from Commissioner Merrill. Celebrate what's great about, the country that we live in. And with that, I wish everyone a good night.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank our staff, of course, for all that they do all the time. Thank you to law enforcement, EMS, fire, 911 telecommunicators for all that y'all do. Congratulations on a long and storied career for Mr. Joyner, and a happy belated birthday to Vice Chairman Brian Hill. This concludes the regular meeting. Thank you for all who attended. I move that the board adjourn. All those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Thank you.